I know he lost his eye in war or whatever.
So SNL's Pete Davidson mocked congressional candidate Dan Crenshaw, who is a Navy SEAL who lost his eye in war. Now, with Crenshaw's photo on the screen, this is what he said. He said, "You may be surprised to hear he's a congressional candidate in Texas and not a hitman in a porno movie. Oh, I'm sorry. I know he lost his eye in war or whatever." So I think that this joke was shocking and reprehensible, and I don't think it's funny at all. And I know that there are some people defending him, saying that, you know, free speech, he can say whatever he wants, people shouldn't be offended. There are other people that are calling for him to be fired. They really dislike SNL, and at least some people are just asking for an apology.
Right, so I'm not going to speak on whether or not the joke was funny or humorous in a little bit. That's not my problem with the whole situation. My problem is I think conservatives have blown this way, way, way out of proportion. I don't think, and I think a lot of people agree with me, especially a lot of conservatives, there should be no protected classes in comedy. Doesn't mean every joke you make about every sensitive subject is going to be funny, but once we say you can't joke about X, Y, or Z, we're kind of ruining comedy.
Okay, well, comedy's already been ruined. Over the years, liberals already ruined comedy. They made the rules, but then they can break the rules. So that's why I think there's outrage among conservatives, especially when it comes to attacking an American hero, because the left makes all these rules, but then they break them, and then we're supposed to like sit here and laugh and think it's funny. Not only was it not funny, I mean, it was absolutely disgusting. Like, I still feel uncomfortable that I even had to sit and watch this joke.
I'm not saying again that you have to find it funny. I think a lot of it, number one, is faux outrage. It's conservatives running to Twitter, trying to get as many retweets as they can. White knight. Daniel Crenshaw can take care of himself, okay? He doesn't need thousands of people rushing to his aid. He's a badass. He can handle himself, and I thought his statement was very professional, well done. My point is this: if we get outraged about this, or if liberals get outraged about anything, literally anything should be able to be joked about. Doesn't mean every joke's going to land. Doesn't mean he's going to hit his target every time. I also felt, again, that the viral clip was cut in a way that was very misleading to people, because it was best to go viral that way. And conservatives are upset, obviously, about where he said in war or whatever. That was kind of the joke, and the only person who seemed to get that was Greg Gutfeld, who was like, the whole joke here is the cavalier way he talks about it.
It's not a joke, because they're constantly dismissing the sacrifices that military men and women make every single day to keep our country safe, to give them the freedom of speech.
I would totally disagree with you. Pete Davidson's own father died as a hero on 9/11. Like, I think he understands the sacrifice, which is why the joke he's telling, he is being cavalier about it. He's like, oh, he only went to war or whatever, a war that spawned after Pete Davidson's own dad was murdered. And the other thing, which I pointed out in my piece, was this is not new territory for Pete Davidson to take a very serious subject and make what some would consider way past the line of appropriate jokes. He's joked about how the way he lasts longer during sex is he imagines his dad burning to death on 9/11. So, again, like, you've got to look at...
I haven't heard that joke. That's awful. Like, well, I just don't even see how that would be funny.
There's so many people who are like, I can't believe they ran this segment. It's like, anyone who knows anything about Pete Davidson can believe they ran this segment. And two, I don't understand the conservatives. Like, we have to be, or those who consider themselves conservative, it can't be, these are the rules, in my opinion, these are the rules. Now we have to, like, shove it in the left's face. Wouldn't it just be better to live by example and be like, we're not going to take the bait, we're not going to get outraged about comedy? Like, comedy has to be edgy, has to be funny.
Well, okay, it has to be funny.
Well, it can,
and I think
but
that
not every joke's
when you're a comedian,
work.
No, it's not going to always work. So Crenshaw, this is what he said. He said, they probably should apologize, but that doesn't mean I'm going to demand an apology. He said this on Fox and Friends, and he said they certainly crossed the line, but their apology won't mean anything to me. And we know that Crenshaw is a very strong man. Mm-hmm. Again, like he said, I don't think an apology is going to make a difference, but I think the apology would make a difference to some of the viewers, and especially the people that are upset about this joke. Look, when you're saying that they're crossing the line and, you know, just exploring different jokes and not every joke's going to stick, we heard from Kanye West say that he was told not to wear his MAGA hat and that he was bullied and made fun of and that he felt like discriminated against because of it. So they seem to be, in charge of what you can and can't say there, but for some reason they let this joke pass.
Well, I can't.
Don't you think that's an issue?
I think there's a clear double standard. Yeah, there is a double standard. There's no question about that. There's a double standard in all parts of the entertainment industry. Like the entire entertainment industry leans hardcore left. And you can make a very valid argument that especially all these liberal comedians, they're not as funny as like Bill Burr or Joe Rogan, like people who kind of play both sides of the aisle. But I don't think that means when Pete Davidson on SNL makes a joke that many find offensive and inappropriate, we have to spin up the outrage machine and be like, we cannot joke about veterans, we can't joke about the military. To me, that's foolish and it's dangerous, because if that's the line in the sand we're willing to draw, then when people say, hey, you can't joke about stuff that conservatives want to joke about, we've lost any moral footing, because we've agreed, like, there are things you can censor.
Okay, but let's just acknowledge that there are rules at SNL, and that is it's anti-Trump all the time. I mean, 99% of their political jokes are attacks on conservatives. They're belittling conservatives. They're making fun of the, everyday worker, the average American. They're so condescending. They're so elite. They live in their bubble. And their jokes, I mean, really, they're just appalling. I used to be a big fan of SNL. I used to watch it religiously when I was younger. I even did the SNL tour in New York. And
I've taken it too.
Yeah, I thought it was the coolest thing. And I'm somebody that is not PC. I do cross the line. I say a lot of stupid things all the time. But I'm constantly on edge. Like, one mistake and I'm pretty much done career-wise.
Right.
That's the standards that the left have put on the right. Therefore, when we see them speaking out, saying really ridiculous things that cross the line, we expect for there to be at least an apology.
Yeah, I think you and I just differ. I don't think you should apologize for jokes even if they don't land. Again, I'm not saying I thought what Pete Davidson said was funny, and I know a lot of other people.
But what do you just make about just their whole setup in general, which is 99% of their jokes are just, first of all, not funny in a political sense. Their other stuff's kind of funny. They should stick to that. But the idea that they're constantly attacking one side, and so they're calling Republicans and conservative Trump supporters racist, and they're just constantly like one-sided attacks.
I would guess
I'm so over it.
I don't watch a ton of SNL.
Okay.
I see like the highlights, right? I would guess their internal research has showed them that their audience is very liberal, and thus that's who they're gonna dictate to. If their advertising dollars were for 55-year-old men in Nebraska watching SNL, they probably run different jokes in different segments.
Well, if they changed their jokes, they probably could get 55-year-olds in Nebraska to watch their show.
But they might view that demographic is gone. And my point...
Because they pushed it away.
Maybe, I'm sure SNL, the people, it is a business. They want to make money. I'm sure they just didn't wake up someday and say, let's bankrupt the company so that we can appease, like, liberals. I mean, it almost certainly was a business decision. But back to whether or not we should have these protected classes in comedy or people that want apology.
Okay, but there is. Let me say who's not a protected class in comedy. White men. I mean, any person of any race can come crap on white males on stage without any sort of backlash or anything.
Yeah, I think
but
that's
if a
fine.
White male makes fun of any other race or any other religion, then, or if they're like Christian or something, then that's a problem.
Yeah,
Have you ever noticed?
No,
I've been going to comedy clubs forever.
Standard.
I will say not only that, but Trump derangement syndrome has ruined comedy at comedy clubs.
Yeah,
it's sickening.
There's a double standard for sure. There's a double standard even against some liberal comedians. Bill Maher has been disinvited from speaking places because he makes jokes the left doesn't like. He's been attacked because he makes fun of Islam. He had the famous quote like, Islam is a religion of peace. They blow you up. There's a piece of you over there, a piece of you over there. So they even attack their own. So I'm certainly not trying to say that they...
Okay, but you're saying there is no rule, or there aren't any rules, but there clearly are rules. There shouldn't be rules.
But we should be the torchbearer. And we're not. We're losing any footing we have on the high ground by going after Pete Davidson, because it only proves that when our backs are against the wall, and when I say our, I mean conservatives, that they're going to do the whole boycott thing.
Well, they already do. I
thought conservatives were supposed to pride themselves that we don't boycott stuff.
Hypothetical here. Let's say Pete Davidson was a Trump supporter,
Yep.
and he made some sick joke to an American hero that happened to be on the left side I think that there would be a boycott and calls for him to be fired and SNL to be taken off the airwaves.
There very well could
I think
be,
that
and I would hope SNL.
We need to have this discussion. Like I said, I don't think Pete Davidson should be fired. I think his joke was disgusting. I think SNL is just a dumpster fire every week when they produce their shows. I don't think they're funny anymore.
I think SNL, number one, shouldn't do anything to Pete Davidson at all. And if the roles were reversed, I would hope the person running SNL still had the conviction and backbone to be like, it was a joke. If you don't like it or you found it inappropriate, it's a joke. That's what it is. And I don't know, because that's a hypothetical situation. If I was running SNL, and whether it was a conservative or a Republican, I'd be like, they're jokes. We're not going to sit here and apologize for jokes, whether or not you found them funny or not. That's the standard I believe in. That's the standard I wrote about. And I think that that's the standard we should all embrace. And then at the end of the day, if they're like, these are the rules we're going to play by, we can at least say we never participated in any of that garbage.
Well, we've been saying that for a long time.
But now people are participating.
I think this is like the straw that broke the camel's back for some people. And how are people responding to your article anyways? When I got to work and heard that you kind of defended Pete Davidson, well, I know that you weren't defending what he said. You were defending his right to say it.
I was defending comedy as a whole.
So I was surprised. How are people responding to your article?
Actually, more people agree with me than I thought they would. I thought pretty much no one would agree with me. But a lot of people have essentially said the same thing: is we don't like what he said, but in comedy, it has to be edgy. And sometimes the edgier you get, the riskier you get. And again, the one thing that I really want to hit on, the line in there, in war or whatever, that was his cavalier, flippant attitude when delivering the line is the joke. And it didn't land for the vast majority of people. But does anyone really believe he was like, yeah, this Navy SEAL, whatever?
Again, people just don't see the purpose of why the United States has to have the most powerful military in the world.
So
when they dismiss these jokes and these, young, impressionable minds and people that are consuming this information, they kind of like, oh yeah, well, it's kind of a joke.
And I think the other thing, the last thing I'll say on this is, let's not overestimate the influence of SNL.
People are getting their news from comedy, and that's why I'm worried about
those people who are getting their news from SNL are never going to vote for Republicans, almost certainly anyways.
Yeah, because they were just brainwashed by all of this propaganda.
Okay, I don't know if they were brainwashed, but this situation only blew up because of conservatives on social media. That's why we're here today, right? It's not.
But let me rephrase this. Let me just put it in this perspective. SNL's not even really comedy anymore. They're literally like a talking mouthpiece for the left. And so that's why I think that there's outrage. Really, I just don't see the comedy anymore.
Well, again, I don't watch enough SNL to know that for sure. I see the highlights, and it is very liberal. There's no question about that. So
did you used to watch it?
When I was in college, I would watch it more when I was in college. But it's not like I made an effort to stop watching SNL. I just do other things on Saturday nights now.
Anyways, well, I'll give you a final thought, because I think we're going to just end up in circles here.
Okay.
So give me a final thought on all this.
Well, to me, it just comes down to freedom. I will defend freedom in comedy at every turn. And I get people didn't find it funny. I didn't particularly myself find it overly funny, but I don't think a bad joke is a reason for the outrage of the last 48 hours. I think it's actually quite embarrassing for conservatives.
Okay, my final thought is, I obviously didn't think it was funny. It's extremely cringeworthy. It almost made me want to cry. I really just hated that joke. And the response from Crenshaw, I thought, was very respectful. Crenshaw, he is an American hero. This comedian is a zero in my book, a negative zero, if that's even possible. And while I don't think he should be fired, and I'm not the type of person that encourages boycotts, I do